Hello there, pumpkins. Yes, I know that a TBR is supposed to be done at the beginning of the time that you are planning on reading things and not at the end of the time when you may have already read the things, but we are doing the October TBR at the very end of October nonetheless. I really wanted to get this video recorded and hopefully get it out before the actual end of October, so I am just doing this at night on very little sleep, no makeup. But I really want to do it, so hopefully you will forgive the very little effort that has been put in, except I am wearing my Lady Eppy Skelly Boy sweater, so hopefully that brings a little fun Halloween vibe to it. And of course, doing it at night means you can see all my lights and Halloween background, so that's a little bit fun too. But yeah, hopefully you'll still be interested in this. Maybe you can find some books you want to read, even if it's not during actual October. They probably are still worth reading. So go grab a mug of tea. I have my little skull skull mug with some herbal tea. You can grab whatever beverage you want, but tea is always encouraged on this channel. Welcome back to the House Beyond the Hedge. Okay, so like I said, this is my October TBR. Full transparency, I have read a lot of these books at this point, so it's more of an R and not the TB part, but we're calling it a TBR nonetheless because this was my TBR before I started October, and there are still a few books left to be read on the list. So let's just start with the book that I read first. And I'm going to tell you which ones I have read. And I'm going to tell you generally like if I liked it, but I'm not going to get too into it because I don't want to give any spoilers in case you want to read any of these. And I do want to do kind of a September, October wrap up stories and steeps where I do pair some of these books with tea. So I'm not going to get super deep into like what I thought about them and rating them, but I'll just give you a quick like, did I like it or not? Spoiler alert, I liked all of them so far. So almost all of these have a theme. So I'm going to not tell you the theme right away, like what kind of ties everything together. But if you can guess it, let me know what you think the theme is. But the very first one I read may come as no surprise if you have watched my previous videos because I love this author and I just got this book. And it is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. I love the cover on this. And this is the most recent Rachel Harrison novel. It came out a few weeks ago now, end of September, and I loved it. I really love all her books. I think Cackle is still my favorite of hers, but I really enjoyed this one as well. Is about, I honestly want to tell you almost nothing about this book because even to give you what seems like basic plot, I feel like is going to give too much away. It's seemingly about a young woman who has left a religious cult. She grew up in what could be called a religious cult, and she has broken out of it. She's been gone for a few years, but then she has to go back because she's invited to a wedding. So I really don't want to tell you more than that because I don't want to spoil anything. Normally, I personally don't really care about spoilers, but I went into this book without knowing anything. Like, I didn't even read the flap for it. I was just like, I know I'm going to love it, so I'm just going to read it. And I did love it. But I'm really glad that I went in without knowing anything because there's actually a couple of twists. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. If you like her other books, definitely read this one. If you've never read any of her other books, I highly recommend all of them. If you like horror but not too scary, the thing I really like about Rachel Harrison is her horror is more fun but unsettling. Like she does unsettling really well, but not terrifying, if that makes sense. So there is some humor to it too, but also just so there's some really weird and creepy stuff. So definitely read this. It's not too scary, so this is a good sort of in between book in the sort of amount of scariness. And yeah, that was the first one I read. Then the next one I read, which you'll see a lot of these are from Book of the Month. I have been getting their box for a while now and I really like it. Not sponsored, but Book of the Month, holla at me if you want to sponsor me because I will do it. But yeah, like actually a lot of these are Book of the Month books and not all of them I got as my monthly book. A lot of them I actually got as like a bonus book when I ordered my monthly book. But this one was my Book of the Month for this October and it is Starling House by Alex E. Harrow. Once again, just like a gorgeous cover. This is about a young woman who grew up as an orphan and kind of just is having a hard time in life, but trying to take care of her little brother. But yeah, she gets a cleaning job at this spooky house in her town, and it was originally owned by this author of this children's book. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't want to, once again, give too much away, but it has great gothic house vibes. The house is kind of like one of those, almost feels alive, you know, has its own personality, which I love that in a house. And there's a young man that lives there that's like the heir, and you sort of find out like who the Starlings are, like what their legacy is, and it's just a really interesting and unique book. I loved this book so much. I usually don't do star ratings, but this would definitely be a 5-star if I was going to. Yeah, and basically she and the young man who is the heir to the house have to fight the evil. You know, once again, don't want to give too much away, but highly, highly recommend this. I'm not going to read the full synopsis for each of these because I don't want it to get too tedious, but definitely if it sounds interesting at all, I would go read the whole description online and see if you want to pick it up. But yeah, loved it so much. Okay, so next on the list is The Stranger Upstairs by Lisa M. Matlin. This one is about a therapist slash social media influencer who buys a house with her husband to fix up, and then all of this creepy, potentially supernatural stuff starts to happen, but also the neighborhood doesn't like outsiders. So the neighborhood is kind of against her. Also, she and her husband are having marital problems, which she is like a couples therapist a lot of the time. So that is kind of an interesting dynamic of her coaching other people, but trying to hide the problems in her own relationships. Oh, and she's written a book on relationships and bettering yourself. So that aspect is really interesting. Also, once again, the house is super creepy. You don't really know what's going on. This one also has a couple of twists, so I don't want to give any of it away. This one really is not what I was expecting at all. I think it really subverts what your expectations are going into this, like knowing just kind of the general story of they're buying this creepy sort of haunted house kind of a thing. But man, does this book go places. I would definitely recommend this. It's once again creepy, but not too scary. So none of these books I read were like too scary, and I'm pretty easily scared. So I think they're all in the manageably scary category. I really want you to read this because I want to talk to somebody about it because it was just so unique. Oh, and it takes place in Australia, which is really cool. Yeah, I don't want to give it away. Like I feel like if I even tell you too much about what happens further along, it's gonna give away the twists and stuff. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. But yeah, would recommend pick it up. So the next one is called Home Before Dark, and this is a Riley Sager book. If you are in the booktube bookstagram world, you've probably heard of Riley Sager, popular horror author. And this was my first Riley Sager book though, so I didn't know what to expect. I haven't read any of their other work, so I just went into this not knowing if I would like it or not like it, but I did like it quite a bit. The story in this one is a young woman grows up sort of in the shadow of this book that her father wrote after her family's very short stay at this big old house that they bought and they were going to fix up, and then all this stuff happened and her father wrote this book about their time there and the hauntings that happened and how they had to leave because of the hauntings. And she's kind of the epicenter of the hauntings in the book, like in the story that he wrote. She's the one that can kind of see the spirits, and she also has night terrors and stuff. And so she kind of grew up with that really affecting her life, that book coming out, because it blew up. It became really well known. Everyone kind of knew them because of it, knew her because of it. So she could never really live a normal life. And then her father passes away and she inherits the house. It turns out he still owns this haunted house from back when I think she was like 5 or 6 or something when they lived there. And so she inherits it and she decides to go fix it up to get it ready to sell, but also just kind of to work through her demons associated with the time living there, associated with how the book influenced her life and how her parents wouldn't really tell her much about what happened there besides like she read the book at some point, and they also got a divorce. And so just like her whole life was affected by this. So she decides to go back to the house to kind of work through that as well as fix it up. And just some crazy shit happens. I just feel like this is also one that like kind of has a couple of twists, subverts your expectations. So I don't want to say too much more again because I don't want to give anything away. It definitely has spooky, gothic mansion vibes. It has creepy young girl ghost vibes. It has sexy groundskeeper guy who also kind of helps her, is going to help her fix up the house, but then stuff happens vibes. Oh, and I forgot one of the most important parts. So the way the book is laid out is almost every other chapter is you get to read a chapter from the book that came out that her father wrote. So you can see this is what it looks like when it's from the book. And then the chapters that are in the present time that is like narrating what she is doing and what's happening in like present day look like this. So it's kind of cool because you get to actually read the events of the book as her father wrote it about what happened when she was younger, but then you're also reading her current viewpoint of what she's going through. And so that's a really cool juxtaposition. The father's book is much more of like the ghost story part, and then there's just like other crazy stuff that happens in her more current day viewpoint. I don't want to tell you any more than that, but I thought it was really entertaining. I would definitely read more Riley Sager based on this. I enjoyed it a lot. I will say, and if you read this book, let me know what you think about this, because I don't know why it is titled this. Home Before Dark. Like, it doesn't really have anything to do with the book except there's a house in it. I don't know. It's just, to me, it's just like such a weird, like all these other ones are like, okay, yeah, this one totally makes sense based on what's happening in the book. This one is literally the house in the book, you know what I mean? But like this one is like, I just don't, it was like somebody made up a title for this book and they had never read it. And it was just based on like a vague description that someone had told them. So I don't know if that's just me, but if you've read this, let me know if you feel that way too. So next we have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. And this one is about a young woman who goes to her grandmother's house for her grandmother's birthday. Another book of the month book. But yeah, so she goes to her grandmother's house for her grandmother's birthday. Her grandmother's birthday is on Halloween, so it very much has Halloween vibes to it. Her whole family is assembled for this birthday, and then they start to get murdered. I don't think that's really giving too much away. It's very obviously referencing the book And Then We Were None by Agatha Christie. If you've ever read that, this is like a similar story outline, I guess. The way people are getting murdered in this house one by one. I'm not making any crazy comparisons there. They know what they're doing. The author intends it to be that way. So basically, the family's all together. They start to get murdered one by one. They can't figure out who's doing it. The young woman who the book is from her point of view, it's like one of the last ones to live. She's just kind of trying to figure out what's going on. Everyone's really scared. They're getting picked off. They don't know why. And there's like these riddles, kind of poems almost, about each of the family members. The grandmother was a children's author, and so that kind of comes into it as well. And then in addition to the family members, there's also like sort of a family friend that's there. Yeah, and so it's just kind of in the vein of like a classic sort of murder mystery whodunit, but once again, a couple of twists in this. And so I don't want to give too much more away. The house is on, it's kind of once again got gothic vibes, on a little island that becomes an island when the tide comes in, because there's like a causeway that you can walk out to it. But when the tide comes in, it's essentially an island. So they're all trapped there. There's a big storm. And so they're all stuck in the house while these murders are happening. And I really, really enjoyed this one. It's, a little spooky because people are getting murdered. Definitely a thriller, but definitely not too scary at all. I would say this is, if you've read Agatha Christie, this is more of like that style of murder mystery type story. Really enjoyable though, and definitely a unique take on it. I just want y'all to read these so that I could talk to someone about them, because the twists and everything, I don't want to talk about it too much here because I don't want to spoil it for you, but I want to talk about it, if you know what I mean. So, okay, so those are all the ones that I've actually already read. Then I have just a couple more I haven't read yet. So these are still actual TBR. So the first one is The Elementals by Michael McDowell. And this book actually came out, I want to say in the 80s. Yeah, 1981. It says one of the finest novels to come out of the horror publishing explosion of the 1970s and 80s. It says that the author is now being rediscovered as one of the best modern horror writers and a master of Southern Gothic literature. So Came out a long time ago, but sort of like republished, being rediscovered now. And this is actually one that my husband bought, but it was on the bookshelf and it works well for this season and for the theme. And it says, after a bizarre and disturbing incident at the funeral of matriarch Marion Savage, the McCrae and Savage families look forward to a restful and relaxing summer at Beldame on Alabama's Gulf Coast, where 3 Victorian houses rise above the shimmering beach. 2 of the houses are habitable, while the third is slowly and mysteriously being buried beneath an enormous dune of blindingly white sand. But though long uninhabited, the third house is not empty. Inside, something deadly lies in wait. Something that has terrified Dauphine Savage and Luker McKay since they were boys and which still haunts their nightmares. Something horrific that may be responsible for several terrible and unexplained deaths years earlier and is now ready to kill again. And this one is a little bit shorter, so I should be hopefully able to get this finished before the end of October. And since I've already read those, these are the ones I still have left. This should hopefully be a quick read, but it sounds really good. Okay, and then the next one, which I don't know if I'm going to get to this one, but if I just go on a spree this weekend, this one also fits with the theme, and I wanted to throw it in here. And it is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is also a Book of the Month book. And I'm not going to read you the whole description, but the little like blurb says Mexican Gothic, which love that book. If you haven't read Mexican Gothic, go read that. Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca in this debut supernatural suspense novel set in the aftermath of the Mexican War of Independence about a remote house, a sinister haunting, and the woman pulled into their clutches. I actually haven't read Rebecca, but similar to that and to Mexican Gothic, it's about a woman that marries this guy and he's got like this house. Like there's rumors about this guy and his first wife died or something, but she ignores it. She marries him, and then there's this house and she gets, mysterious weird stuff is happening once she like moves into the house. So it's that sort of trope, but set after the Mexican War of Independence. I have also another one by this author on the shelf that I'm going to hopefully get to at some point, but I think this one is going to be really good. All right, and then last but not least, I have one that is not part of the theme. So all the rest of those books fit a very specific theme. Let me know down in the comments if you think you know what the theme is. It's probably pretty easy to spot after hearing me say the descriptions of all the books, but let me know what you think it is. This one, however, does not fit in the theme, but I wanted to include it anyway because it takes place at least partly during Halloween, so it is very Halloween specific, and also it's something more lighthearted. It's like a romance. It's not a horror novel, which the rest of those were pretty much all horror, thriller, mystery, that kind of thing. So I just wanted something a little fun. And this one is called All Alone with You by Amelia Diane Coombs. I bought this because an artist that I follow on Instagram did a little special illustration for the book release. This book just came out pretty recently. And so I saw this on their Instagram and they were promoting the book because they did this little print. So when I saw that and saw that the book took place at least partly during Halloween, you'll see, I think that's like at the Halloween party, and sort of read what the book was about, I was like, yeah, I'll buy that. Sure. So in addition to the little print, I also got a signed copy of the book. So that was kind of cool. And I'll post the artist's Instagram link down below if you want to go check them out. Basically, this is a grumpy sunshine romance trope, but the main young woman in it is the grumpy and the guy in it is the sunshine. So it's kind of like a reversal. I feel like a lot of grumpy sunshine trope books that you see are the woman is the sunshine and the guy is the grumpy. Sorry, just need a little. But this is the reverse of that. So I thought that was kind of fun. Yeah, okay, I guess I'll read you a little bit. I don't really know how to tell you about what happens otherwise because I haven't read it. So it says, Eloise Dean is the worst and doesn't care who knows it. She's grumpy, prefers to be alone, and is just slogging through senior year with one goal: get accepted to USC and move to California. So when her guidance counselor drops the bombshell that to score a scholarship she'll desperately need, her applications require volunteer hours, Eloise is up for the challenge until she's paired with Life Care, a volunteer agency that offers social support to lonely seniors through phone calls and visits. Basically, it's a total nightmare for Eloise's anxiety, right? Think we can relate? Talking on the phone causes anxiety. Eloise realizes she's made a huge mistake, especially when she's paired with Austin, the fellow volunteer who's the sunshine to her cloudy day. But as Eloise and Austin work together to keep Marianne Landis, the mysterious former frontwoman of the 1970s band The Laundromats — oh yeah, so there's like a band element to this too, which is kind of fun — company, something strange happens. She actually likes Marianne and Austin. Eloise isn't sure what to do with that, especially when her feelings toward Austin begin to blur into more than friends territory. And when ex-girlfriend's long-buried wounds and insecurities reappear, Eloise will have a choice to make: go all in with Marianne and Austin, or get out before she gets hurt. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be nice to have a little decompress after reading all of these spooky, scary books. Just something a little more lighthearted, a little more fun. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. If you have read this, please let me know. I haven't really seen anyone talking about it, so I have no idea if it's good or not, but I have high hopes. All right, so that is all of my October TBR. Like I said, some of them are already but some are still TBR. I am curious to know if you have read any of these, if you liked them, if you didn't like them. Like I said, if you want to talk about the twists with me, I would be happy to. You can always catch me over on Instagram if you want to DM to talk about books or whatever. It's at House Beyond the Hedge on Instagram. So come find me over there and we can chat about the crazy stuff that happens in these books. If you like to watch cozy video games being played, follow me on Twitch. It's at Trusty Parasol over there on Twitch. And yeah, we just hang out and play games, usually cozy ones, and it's a good time. And I think that is going to be it for this video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Once again, the production value today is not the highest, but that's not why we're here, right? We're here to talk about books, and we did that. I am so happy with how my TBR has been going. I have really enjoyed all of these books. There hasn't been one that I was disappointed with, so that's awesome. I would recommend all of the ones that I've read so far. And I'm excited to try and get in a couple more before the end of October. We still have a few days, so I think I could probably get at least one more, if not two, in. And the others will just have to be bumped back to a future TBR. And I will be back hopefully sometime in November to recap a couple of these and pair them with some teas from my collection in a Stories and Steeps video. So be on the lookout for that. And I have a couple more October videos that I didn't quite get to in October, but I still would like to post them. So you might be seeing a little bit more October spooky season content into November. Hopefully that's okay with you. I like that kind of thing all year round, so I'm happy to still do those, but I also will probably try and do some dark academia content in November. So yeah, like I said, like and subscribe if you want to catch that content that's going to be coming up. And always remember to keep the kettle warm, because I will see you next time.